I would now like to introduce this session's panelists on stage. Dr. Ismail Yaylachi from Istanbul Sehir University, Assistant Professor Dr. Almira Akhmetova from International Islamic University, Malaysia, and Professor Dr. Walid Fikri Faris, Academic Consultant for Al-Bukhari University. I hand the floor to you, Dr. Bashir.
Respected panels, our dear brothers and sisters, professors, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to this third session this afternoon, which is on the Restoring the Islamic Golden Age 21st Century House of Wisdom. And actually, as we are here planning to discuss more about the future thinkers, the Muslim future thinkers, of course, I mean, we need to retrieve or recall the golden age of Islam, where we Muslims contributed to serve the humanity for over 1,000 years, and in a sphere of over 1/3 of the world. So in order to know exactly what is our future plan, we need to know more about what are actually the patterns and the signs of rise which made the Islamic civilization in its golden age, and what went wrong actually in that Islamic civilization in order to make sure that we are not going to have the same problem again and again. Actually, the issue of restoring the golden age of Islam, or the Islamic golden age, is an issue which has been going through several debates, whether the Islamic civilization had been declined, or it is yet to be declined, where it needs to be restored, or it's just a matter of it is passing through a certain point in its circle of civilization. I think all that need to be known by our panels. Are going to address us in several issues, including, in fact, the main important issue of that golden age of Islam, which is knowledge itself, as the Islamic civilization contributed the best in terms of the scientific heritage, which was known in the history with the House of Wisdom, which was actually in Baghdad, a symbol of the Muslim scientific and academic product, which contributed in serving the Islamic civilization and humanity at large. So can we have another 21st century house of wisdom, or what is going to be exactly? That will be known, inshallah, by our panels. Our first speaker will be Dr. Almira Akhmetova, a lecturer and assistant professor in the International Islamic University, Malaysia. Please welcome.
Professors are sitting, students and delegation. So when the Prof. Walid, they sent me the topic that about the restoring Islamic golden age, 21st century's Baytul Hikmah, I was in horror. How I am going to present, because I'm a historian. I teach history. I know what did happen to Baytul Hikmah. Then I will explain to you slowly why I was in horror. Then I said, what points I'm going to discuss and how, what, I mean, I didn't know what to focus, because there are many questions will rise when we will speak about Baytul Hikmah. For example, when we are speaking about, it is about the possibility of Baytul Hikmah, or House of Wisdom in 21st century, we have to ask too many questions. Number one, is it possible to have the Baytul Hikmah today in the Muslim world? Number one. Number two, also, if yes, how we are going to build it? And also where it will be, and in what forum? Because I was attending the previous session. In the previous session, we were talking that in the 2050s, there will be a totally different time. Now is already different time. I came to Malaysia around 20 years ago. I just we were speaking with one student who was sitting next to me, I said, you know, sister, when I was coming to Malaysia, we didn't have the smartphones at that time, but the hand phones were so big. It was very heavy. Even the majority of you never see such kind of the hand phones. But today, how is the life very easy? But after the while, in 21st century, the life is going to be very difficult. So if we are willing to have Baitul Hikmah, exactly in what form we are willing to have it? And also, where exactly we are going to have it? In the previous panel also we were saying that the Turkey is a leader of the Muslim world, another leader is Saudi Arabia, third one is Iran. But where we are going to have it? And also which country also I mentioned deserve to have it? And also, as Muslims, are we capable to have it? Or do we deserve to have it? These are the main questions. Because this question usually I speak in my classes. I teach Islamic civilization and, at the undergraduate level. In my classes, we are speaking about Islamic civilization, what did happen, why Islamic civilization was declining. And usually, instead of discussing about the Baitul Hikmah in my classes, I like to listen to my students. Usually what I do, I'm just asking from my students to prepare different type of the speeches, and they come and they will present in the class. So very interesting things are happening after that. What is you know, what I realize, what I observe, most of the students, they are so much obsessed with the one episode of Baitul Hikmah that the Mongols destroyed Baitul Hikmah in 1258, and the river of the water of the river became the dark color or the black color because of the ink was coming from the books. Because the Mongols, in order to go to the other side of the river, they were just throwing the books into the water, right? So the students are all the time talking about this one. Then I start asking, what was the contribution of Baitul Hikmah? Who were working there? They don't know anything. And also another very interesting thing did happen. I want to share this one. I think one time I was sharing it in the Kuliya assembly. I am teaching in IRKHS. So one of the students she was presenting about Ibn Firnas. Ibn Firnas was a musician, faqih, and also the engineer who created first flying machine. And at the age of 70, he was able to fly in Andalusia, in Muslim Spain. And he was living in the 9th century. So the student is presenting about him. She is talking, very excited that how our Muslim man was able to create the first machine before the Western scholars. And he was able to fly at the age of 70 plus. Of course, he fell down. He broke some of the parts of the body, is never mind, but he was able to fly at the age of 70. This is also bringing the very important point. We don't have any man today who is willing to fly as a bird at the age of 70, right? It's very difficult to find. This is one of the reasons how we don't have any motivation today for the change. So this sister ended the presentation by saying that the Ibn Firnas was the drawing, everything, all the how to make this machine, but unfortunately, none of his books were survived. Then another student asked him, what was the reason? She said, oh, because, you know, Mongols were destroying Baitul Hikmah, and when they were destroying all of his books. I said to her, excuse me, are you blaming the Mongols for the losing of the books of Ibn Firnas, which was written in Muslim Spain or Andalusia in the 9th century? So this is the one thing. The another thing, I said, okay, well, Baitul Hikmah was destroyed in the 13th century. But why we were not able to build another Baitul Hikmah in the span of 850 plus years? We didn't come out with another Baitul Hikmah. So these are very important questions, and it comes to my first point, that until we will finish or stop blaming other people for our failure, we will be never able to build Baitul Hikmah. This is number one. Because Baitul Hikmah, the creating of Baitul Hikmah, it demands from you inspiration, motivation, hard working, sincerity, and also the inner peace, and also the happiness. If you are not happy, you cannot they create something like this. You have to be satisfied, you have to be happy. Then, also another thing, Baitul Hikmah was not only the center of learning, it was the heart of the world. It was the center of all innovations of the world of that time. The best, the most important innovations were happening there in Baitul Hikmah, in Baghdad. And it was the place where Al-Khwarizmi was, together with him, his team, he was drawing the first map of the world. And also where he was also creating the concept of zero. And also I am just bringing some of the examples just to remember how was this Baitul Hikmah very important. There was Ibn Haytham, who was creating not only creating, he was laying foundations of experimental method, and he was using it for the optics. And also there were the best medical doctors working in Baitul Hikmah, and also writing textbooks, which are going to be used in European universities for many centuries as textbooks. After being translated into Latin and in Roman languages, they were used as textbooks in European universities until the end of the 17th century. And also Baitul Hikmah was the place for many observatories. It has the best instruments of the world. Science was rising there. But the most importantly, Baitul Hikmah was the center of translation. The best books of the world were all gathered there, and they were translated from Persian, Chinese, Indian, the Syriac, and other languages into Arabic. So it means it was the container, Baitul Hikmah's library was the container of the wisdom of the world, starting from the beginning of humanity. So it comes to another very important point. It means Muslim world was the superpower. It was very strong. They were capable to collect all the books of the world, and they were also bringing the best scholars of the world, because the majority of people who were translating books from different languages into Arabic were non-Muslims. They were working side by side. So it means that it is very important that the political and the economic power, because we have to have a strong power. Only superpowers own science and technology. We have to realize this, and we realize it. And also through science and technology, they will spread their values and principles, fashion and ethics, as well as their worldview and ideologies. It's why the fashion which was created in Osmanli, for example, was used in Europe, for example, in the British and in many empires for many years. So if you are not the superpower, you cannot just ask other people come and work for you, help from you, and having the Baitul Hikmah will be some kind of the illusion only. But my question is, if Muslim science was so advanced, what was the reason for its decline? Or why we are Muslims who were the lecturers one day, we became the students of our students, or the pupils of our students, who are Europeans, for example. And also, look at what is happening today in the Muslim world in the science and technology. I am just I have to read this one because there are some numbers. So I found this one, the statistic that the one person who is the Hilal Ufak from the University of Texas in Austin is saying that the spirit of science in the contemporary Muslim world is as dry as desert. And also, according to the statistics, these are given by the Muslims, not non-Muslims, okay? And one person, the Pervez Amir Ali Hoy, a Pakistani nuclear physicist, mathematician, academic, contemporary Muslim, saying that the contemporary Muslim countries have 9 scientists, engineers, and technicians per 1,000 people. So for per 1,000 people, only 9 who are good in science, compared with the world average of 41. There are around 1,800 universities in the Muslim world, but only 312 with scholars who have published journal articles. And also the Steven Weinberg, who is the Nobel Prize the laureate, he is saying that for 40 years, I have not seen a single paper by a physicist or astronomer working in the Muslim country that was worth reading. It's why sometimes some politicians are saying that when we start having the migration from the Muslim world to Europe, they start calling Muslims as a parasites, isn't it? We are not creating anything. But in the previous panel, we said we are consumers only. We are not creating anything. So what is going to be the brothers and sisters? Can we have Baitul Hikmah in the 21st century? So this is coming to the third point. Can we have it or not? If we are going to live in this miserable situation, my answer will be no. Because today we are sick with two things. Number one is superiority complex. Number two is inferiority complex. Superiority complex means that we are so happy that we are born as Muslims and we consider other people that they're below us. And we feel ourselves that we are chosen people. We will enter to paradise. This is number one. We are sick with this one. Number two, we have inferiority complex. We lost hope. We never believed that in one day we are going to have Baitul Hikmah. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was identifying Muslim ummah as a ummatan wasatan, number one. Number two, kuntum khairan ummatan ukhrijat linnas. You were the best nation who came to people. Who came to people as a best nation. So we have to be best nation in order to come. So it means we have to have the best universities. We have to write the best articles. We have to write the best books. Or politicians supposed to be the best nation. This is the meaning of this ayah, according to my understanding, and the other people may correct me if I am wrong. So then there is no point of asking, can we have Baitul Hikmah today or no? But we have to have it. We didn't have it for 850 years, but somehow we have to build it. But we are going to have it in the 21st century, or we are going to have it after 300 years, 400 years, is up to you, to the young people. Because I already belong to the middle age. I think my time is slowly going already with, we are losing it, and our hope are you. But there are very simple stages, because the evil steps, because I have class at 5, I may be not able to stay. Some of you may ask, what are your suggestions to have Baitul Hikmah? So I just came out because I didn't have much time to think about it. Sometimes we have to think for months in order to come out with a very proper solutions. But these are very simple solutions, which I came out yesterday in the midnight only. So number one, the positive action. And the hope is required. For the people, this is mainly for the people who are sick with the inferiority complex. We have to be hopeful. This is also said by the Badiuzzzaman Sayyid Nursi. Many of you know him, isn't it? He says that one of the sicknesses is the hopelessness. And when we are going to have a hope for the better future, this is going to be the beginning of change. So you have to have hope. You have to trust in yourself, and you have to have a self-confidence. This is going to be step number one. But of course, for the people who are sick with the superiority complex, you have to be more humble and try to find out, to see the other way, to listen to the other people. Then number two, we have to focus on positive things. No need to focus how the Mongols were destroying Baitul Hikmah. This is already gone. No need to speak about it. Just we have to focus on the positive things. We have to stop blaming other people in our failure. And also another thing, don't complain much. Complaining is taking our energy. Don't complain, just do it. Smile and do. Complain, everything's supposed to stay in your inside. And also the number three, hard working is required. You have to work hard. It is why I am very angry when my students are late to my class for 20 minutes because of raining. This is the not generation who is going to build Baitul Hikmah people. If you are not responsible, if you are not able to come to class at least at time, you cannot build Baitul Hikmah. And also the number four, we have to wake up. We have to learn how to value our time, and also we have to work hard. Number five, we have to take responsibility of being the best nation. We have to become a best nation. We have to try. With humbleness, we have to take it, honor and dignity. And this is very noble mission. And also number five, change should be started at the individual level, but we have to remember, Baitul Hikmah was a teamwork. It was not the work of the individuals. So we have to have a team. We have to prepare ourselves as individuals, and then after that, we have to work as a team. And thank you very much for listening to me. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you very much, Dr. Almira, for this very important presentation. Actually looking forward towards restoring our golden age of Islam, especially in what we were known with, and that is the Baytul Hikmah as a symbol of the Islamic heritage, the Islamic scientific and academic heritage. Dr. Almira tried actually to set up what are the things which can help us actually to restore on the 21st century this Baytul Hikmah again, the house of wisdom. And she addressed our students how we can in fact think about this and have a strategic plan towards restoring these important, very important elements in the rise of our Islamic civilization. Thank you very much, Doctor, for your presentation. May I invite now Dr. Ismail Yalladsi, all right, from Istanbul Shahir University. Please, تفضل, شكرا.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum once again. This is the time that I was supposed to be. I want to, in order to address the question of, thinking of the importance or significance or relevance of House of Wisdom, Baytul Hikmah for our times, I think we first have to, because that's my question, I should tell this, I'm not a historian, I don't know the specifics of what goes on in Baytul Hikmah, I only have the shallow knowledge of, that Baytul Hikmah was the center of knowledge production and also transmission through translations and all that. But what I want to talk about today is what it means for us today, for us Muslims, rather than bragging about what kind of a civilization we had once or what our ancestors did once. What it means for today, what it stands for. I think this is the question that I will be grappling with in the following minutes. I think to appreciate the significance of anything, we first have to understand what the conditions we are in. And I think we are all I assume that we are all on the same page on this. A very significant, very important anthropologist, Tarar Asad, uses a term. He says the non-Western societies are conscripts of Western civilization. We live in a world whose main shape was given by developments that emerged in Europe. Yes, the Muslim world has participated in it in the form of being colonized or providing cash crop economies, but we have been, in general, on the receiving part of the modernity. So the modern predicament is one in which we try to survive and thrive in a world in which the main parameters are not set neither by us nor by our values. So in that context, and add to this picture also the military defeats, political fragmentations, humiliations, colonization, then Muslim reformers, Muslim intellectuals of 19th century, late 19th century, when they were thinking on that question, I think they basically had two kinds of perspectives on this. One perspective was a thoroughly political reading of the situation. That Muslims, the problems that we Muslims under modern conditions are facing is basically a political question that needs to be answered at the political level. So this is why Jamaluddin Afghani, for example, propagated for a Muslim unity, a political unification and later on a political alliances, in short. The second strand, the second tide, I should say, the second current of thinking about the Muslim predicament in modern times is to see it in terms of knowledge production is to see it as an epistemological challenge. The fundamental problems, according to this perspective, the fundamental problems we are facing are rooted in the way we understand ourselves, we produce the knowledge of this world. The fundamental methods, parameters through which we produce the knowledge of the world has pushed to the position of marginality, sometimes irrelevancy. Think of, for example, what happens to fiqh when, for example, in the imperial era, Islamic law becomes a way more reduced to the field of family law, for example. That says next to nothing about trade law, for example, and other political matters. So the answer, according to this line of thinking, which, for example, Muhammad Abduh was part, I think, was that this is an intellectual challenge, a scholarly epistemological challenge, which should be answered at that level. Of course, neither Afghani was ignoring the epistemological basis, nor Abduh was unaware of the political significance of the context. But the question is where to start. And I'm not here to say, this is the point to start. I'm in a way to, my position is to see these, to observe the very deeply interconnected nature of this epistemological and political challenge. In terms of the way we produce knowledge, because the significance of Darul Hikmah for us, or Beitul Hikmah for us, is that it stands as a symbol of Muslim openness for knowledge. It represents a position that would say, seek knowledge, even if it is in China, right? The saying attributed to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So through translation, through original thinking, and also through translations, Muslims opened themselves to knowledge that was produced outside. For example, in ancient Greece, the philosophical and scientific writings, productions of the time. When it comes to the question of knowledge, in the Muslim world, we see two extremes. The first one is to take an extremely traditionalist, introverted position, to say, yeah, we Muslims have our own ways of knowing the world. We have nothing to learn from the Western knowledge. Hence, things like sociology, political science, all social sciences, basically have nothing to say. We have our own fiqh, we have our own ways of thinking about ourselves, and this line of thinking is an extreme version of closing oneself to the world. This is, I should say, on the minority in the Muslim world, at least at the intellectual level, a minority position, but an important one still exists. We see, for example, in the country that I live, in Turkey, occasionally you see some sheikh saying such things, for example. So it exists. The second extreme, the opposite of this, is to open up oneself, in the Muslim societies, to modern production without any reservations. To take what is produced from within, say, sociology, political science, economics, psychology, as if it needed no extra intervention and it was just readily adaptable and takeable. This is something that we see in modernist streaks, especially in extreme modernist currents. We see that kind of thinking. Knowledge is produced in the West, follow the West. Whatever is being produced there, just open a local branch and just disperse it. We have to have a balanced approach in this one too, not just in ethics. And I think the balanced one is to be open to knowledge, and this is what I get from Beitul Hikmah. Being open to knowledge that is produced elsewhere. Be it in the West, be it outside of the West. In China, in India, wherever it is, in Latin America, whatever it is. Being open to knowledge, but with the condition that we put that knowledge to the test of our fundamental values. Okay? For example, in Beitul Hikmah, when our philosophers were translating Aristotle, the term gods was translated not as gods into Arabic, but as feleks, for example, felek. A different, because that because that cosmology doesn't allow for gods. This kind of, and I'm not just thinking in terms of what we do in translation. I'm thinking in terms of what we do with our encounter with modern knowledge. I think we have to engage with the modern knowledge, but we cannot assume that it has been produced in clouds. It's been produced in the world. What these extreme modernist way of thinking misses, in my opinion, is that knowledge is practical. Knowledge is always carries the trace of its own producer. One international relations theorist, Robert Cox, those of you who study political science would know, said theory is always for someone, for some purpose. There is no way we can see these theories produced out of these social sciences as if they were impersonal, neutral statements of truth. They always emerge from some place. They always reflect the perspective of that view. That's why the legendary Egyptian thinker Abdul Wahab al-Masiri, for example, called this an epistemological bias. If you look at the way Western social sciences and humanities work, they operate with a very tacit epistemological bias. But speaking of wasatiyya can sometimes be a cover for other risks and errors. Often when we say we have to have a kind of syncretic perspective, we sometimes mistake it to be as the simplistic way of mixing the two, okay? Or the way we see it in the Muslim world is just to put the adjective Islamic before any science and then assume that it has become Islamic, which they do not. Okay? I think this is one of the risks that we run in that endeavor. I think in itself, it's quite praiseworthy to have an effort to have something like Islamic finance, Islamic economics, which is extremely important. But when doing it, if we assume that we just push riba out of picture, if we just take interest rate out of it, it would just be perfect. It would just be an Islamic economics. It will not be. Because the fundamental essence of the global capitalist system rests on certain presumptions that do not necessarily sit very well with basic human Islamic teachings. Okay? We have to push Islamic teachings toward that kind of a capitalist understanding. I'm not saying that we should just simply be rejecting, be rejectionist. I'm just saying that by simply putting Islamic in front of an economic, say we have Islamic sociology, Islamic psychology, Islamic finance, Islamic international relations, these are all very important endeavors. But in order to, making a perspective Islamic, it first requires the understanding of that field in its entirety. You first have to understand how the global economic system is working, which requires a very solid knowledge in economics. Then when you get the totality, the entirety of it, then you try to develop an Islamic perspective in a holistic manner, rather than piecemeal, just take from this, take from that. The second example I can give about these risks is in the field of politics and political science, we see the statement Islamic State, as if we just put, if we just insert Sharia into the functioning of the modern state, it, miraculously becomes Islamic State. In my opinion, it doesn't. Because, yes, to be a Muslim is to live by Sharia in personal and communal life. And it has some aspects that concern the state. That's true. But if we take the modern state as if it was, if we understand the modern state as if it was the same state that Prophet Muhammad has led, as if it was the same state that Abbasis or Umayyads has led, or Ottomans has led, that would be a grave misunderstanding. Then you would have, that requires a very solid understanding of sociology, political science, social theory, political theory, history to grasp the challenge in its entirety. That's why when you just insert Sharia into the picture and keep all the rest the same, it doesn't become an Islamic state. It doesn't Islamize the state. It statizes Sharia, which sometimes is going against the logic of Sharia. Okay. Then, for example, you chase after people's, which happened in one Muslim country I will not name. Then you chase after people's style of hair cutting on the basis of Sharia, for example. There's too much penetration into people's everyday lives through surveillance, through mechanisms of oppression. That doesn't sit very well with the way Sharia worked in classical times. What is required is not to say, then it doesn't work well, but that in order for it to work well, it has to be studied in its entirety, in its totality, in its essence, which requires a very thorough, very solid understanding of what the modern state is, how it functions, where it came from, which requires solid knowledge in sociology, political science, history, social and political theory. That's why even if you want with best intentions, you say we will establish an Islamic state, and you have no idea how the modern state functions and how it differs from the classical period, then you may end up in a position where you do injustice to Sharia itself. That's why when we look at, Malaysia is one of the best examples here, positive ones. But if you look at the rest of the world, the states that are applying Sharia as state law, which one of them would you like to be living in? Okay. All these atrocities, violences perpetrated in its name. So I think this is why we have to, at the knowledge production level, we have to be way more cognizant of the fact that these are total challenges and it has to be faced in its totality, in its entirety to come up with a meaningful response. Finally, that's my final point, doing all of these requires, again, repeating myself, a solid basis in social sciences. What we, in general see, especially in practically oriented circles like politicians, a direct jump to technical knowledge. As if all of this room were perfect engineers, all of our problems would be resolved, which is absolutely not the case. Okay? Yes, you might catch technology, you might be at the cutting edge of technology, but what would that mean? How would you put that into use in the broader framework of your social fabric, your political thinking, your social structure? All of this requires a very thorough, solid understanding of social sciences and humanities. That's why I think it needs careful attention. It shouldn't be pushed to the rear in those debates. Thank you very much for your patience. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ismail, for this very informative and analytical talk, which focuses on the way of learning lessons from the House of Wisdom. As Dr. mentioned, and also Dr. Almira before him, House of Wisdom is a symbol of the knowledge production in the history of Islam, which has taken different places throughout our civilization. So, and he stressed more on the intellectual, the epistemological and political challenges facing us today and facing our future thinkers as well, in how to restore again that kind of knowledge production, which can help us actually to rise again, to take our lead as the best of the Ummah. And I think we still need more discussion and more debate, more research on how to get back or to restore our lead in knowledge again. Thank you very much, Doctor, for this good presentation. Now I would like to invite Professor Walid Fikri Faris. All right. Director of International Institute of Muslim Unity, also to share with us his thoughts on the topic. Professor Walid Fikri is, as I know him personally, is a very good reader, actually. He's a very good reader, and he can tell us more on the House of Wisdom. Please, thank you.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. First, I know those who are still struggling to be awake up till now. I really thank you very much, because I can see people slipping in their chairs, so hopefully nobody will go down after he or she will sleep. So really thank you for remaining up to this moment. I want to touch on 3 points quickly. The first point is the situation in this hall and how it relates when we talk about civilization. There is a famous story of Talut and Jalut, I think that all of us know in the Quran. And then the people whom Allah sent Talut for them, those people were crying, we need to go and fight to restore our rights, to restore our dignity and something like this. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had a prophet at this time with them, and he told them, you are not ready. But they said, no, we are ready. We are ready. He said, okay, if you are ready, then Allah will listen to you. Allah will send you to test your readiness. So Allah sent to them a king, Talut. The first thing they have done, they start to debate about Talut. This is the first step. So they were not serious, in fact. They were not serious. And then after they follow Talut, Talut formed an army, and this army to go and move to restore the rights. So they were a big crowd, but this crowd was decreasing along the way, because Talut started to put some conditions to them. Until they were crossing a certain river, and then Talut said, nobody should drink water out of this river, except just a handful of water, nothing more than this. So most of them drank water, and only very few had this handful. And then he ended by fighting with a very few people. And he was granted victory with this few people. So this is the same situation, unfortunately, in the Muslim world. In fact, whenever we go to a certain place, people will ask questions about what will happen to the Muslim world, what will happen to the Ummah, why we are disintegrating, why we are disunited, and blah, 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 blah. But when you call people for action, then you'll find very few people coming seriously to stand, to do something. Or they are willing to sacrifice their comfort zone. They are not willing to sacrifice. Everybody is happy to speak, to talk. But if you ask her to sacrifice their comfort zone, nobody will come. So the situation is like this. This is what we are now. So this is why we have many things. And related to this is also in the Quran, Allah told us a very interesting statement, which when people in the old times, the companions of the Prophet ﷺ used to, people describe them, they said they were people of action, not people of talking. يا أيها الذين آمنوا لما تقولون ما لا تفعلون. Oh, you believe? Why you are saying something that you will not do, or you are not committed to do? So we need to go more into action rather into talking. When we talk about civilization, of course, we have to differentiate between 2 eras, 2 different eras, like Dr. Ismail pointed out. But he pointed out, of course, much more better than me, because he's a political scientist. But I will just put it in a very simple statement. When we talk about the era before the collapse of the Ottoman Empire, we were talking about a transnational boundaries. We were talking about a huge entity. This entity is called Muslim Ummah. So there was no Egyptian as a race, or as a people, it's called Egyptian, but they are not a territory. They are not a territory. Palestinian, they are not a territory. Yemeni, they are not a territory. So it was a big umbrella, this big umbrella. Under this, of course, people, we can have many, many things. So this was the situation from the beginning of Islam. it was usually a big umbrella. Even if we have a smaller umbrellas around, these small umbrellas or caliphate, small caliphate around, they were actually paying allegiance to the main one, as a matter of being covered under this bigger umbrella. So when we have House of Wisdom, when we have all of this type of stuff, then it is rational. We have one entity. This one entity has clear projects, very well-defined goals, and they are moving to these goals to revive this situation. After the colonialism, or during the colonialism, and after colonialism, post-colonialism, now we have a new reality, a completely different reality. This current reality is we have member states, nation states, and these nation states will protect their territory, will protect their rights, or what they perceive as their rights, and they will protect also their own quote-unquote tradition and something like this. And we ended up 57 countries, or more or less, whatever, how you count. It depends how you count, yeah. And these 57 countries have completely different agendas, different goals, different positioning. So how come you can come to a house of wisdom for the Muslims under this type of umbrella? The first step you need to talk about, before we talk about house of wisdom under this umbrella, is to bring these people together at least on common grounds. There was one of the leaders of one of the Muslim Arab countries. He once mentioned, I will not mention his name, man. He once mentioned in a meeting, and this was actually caught on video in one of the meetings of the OIC. He said some time ago, this was maybe more than 10 years ago, and he said, nothing connect us in this room except this room. He said in a meeting publicly, of course, in front of everybody, and the media caught this statement later. He said, nothing connect us in this room except this room. And in fact, he was telling the truth, unfortunately. Unfortunately, he was telling the truth. A very scary truth, but this is the truth. And this is what you need to deal with. When we talk about people working together, a simple example, if we cannot have it working here, it will never work outside. I think the director pointed out early in the morning. You have Egyptian student, they will stay together. You have Malaysian student, they will stay together. You have Bengali student, they will stay together. And then rarely they will communicate with other people unless there is a kind of a benefit or a mutual benefit, then they will start to communicate. So this type of division, how can you claim to restore a civilization with this type of compartmental mentality? The mentality that's closed on your own race or your own country. If you have this mentality, so forget about any discussion about the Ummah and this type of things. The Ummah here is beyond discussion, actually. It's beyond discussion. It's something that we should not talk about. We should talk about a very primitive level of discussion here, just to cooperate together. Just to cooperate together on very simple issues. Another point also related to the issue of civilization. When people talk definition of civilization, of course, our colleagues in human sciences, they can give a better definition. But as far as I read, there are more than 20 different definitions of civilization. And there's no agreement. And this is very common in social sciences because everybody will interpret the term from a certain philosophical and sometimes ideological approach. But I think everybody agrees on very basic issues. What we can say that everybody agrees, a civilization need to have a common ground. This is number one. Otherwise, there is no civilization. When we say Chinese civilization, yeah, those people have common ground. When we have historically Islamic civilization, there was a common ground. And now we talk about Anglo-Saxon civilization. Some people call it American civilization, or some people call it Anglo-Saxon. There is a common ground. There's a common ground. Then, second point is there should be a kind of a direction for this group, this entity, a kind of a well-defined direction where they are heading. what they are going to, or how they are going to tackle the challenges, outside challenges and within, the challenges within. If they do agree on this one, then we have another step forward. A third one is you are producing, I will not say technology, I do agree pretty much with Dr. Ismail. Technology is not the solution, in fact. Technology is not the solution. Sometimes we talk about technologies that, like, if we have the technology, the top technology, we will solve all our problems. This is a myth, in fact, a big myth. But technology is part of the things that you need to have. It's part of the tools, a set of tools. But the most important, the social structure. You need to have a social structure which is homogeneous at least. Homogeneous at least. I asked once one of our colleagues, one of our students in one meeting, when we talk about the Muslim Ummah and the unity and this blah, blah, blah. I told him, can you give me a statistics how many multiracial marriages in the Muslim world will survive and how many will not survive? Can you give me a statistics on this? I know some of the statistics. It's a scary statistics. If two people from two different Muslim countries, they cannot form a house. They cannot form a house because of different cultures. Can they form a civilization? Complete disaster. It's a complete disaster. This is very basic. It's a very basic. Two people from two different countries, they cannot form a home properly. Then can they do really civilization? This is a question that we need to answer ourselves. So the sense of civilization on the, I would say, the community conscious, if I can call it like this, or the Muslims at large conscious, yes, we still have some remaining of the sense of civilization. Why? Because, for example, now we have Dr. Amira from Russia, Dr. Ismail from Turkey, I'm from Egypt, a bit of maybe Arabic descent somehow, Dr. Bashir, a mixed Turkish-Arabic descent. So we are not really related. We are not the same family tree. We are not the same ethnic group. But whenever we talk about Muslims, we talk about Abu Bakr and Umar and Ali as our forefathers. But literally, they are not. They are not. When we talk about the glorious fight in places like Dagestan before, historically under Shamil and all this kind of things, when we talk about Imam Shamil doesn't belong to me. We are not the same family tree, but I consider him one of my leaders. Why? Because of the sense of community. This is the remaining sense of civilization that we still have. Alhamdulillah, we still have this one up till now. Hopefully, we will not lose it. And when we talk also about the Ottoman Empire, we talk about Sultan Muhammad al-Fatih, for example. Everybody is proud of him. Though, how many of us are Turkish who are really belong to Muhammad al-Fatih? Very few. Very few. So the sense of civilization, the sense of community is still remaining in this Muslim Ummah at large. Here I'm using Muslim Ummah in the Quranic term, not in the political term. Political term, Dr. Yaqub discussed about it, Dr. Ismail also discussed about it. I'm using it in the general term that the Quran used. It's a kind of a very big term. So we need to build up on this remaining feelings, sentiments. And the first step we need to do is to cooperate. Second step, we need to understand that we have a very serious mission. And this serious mission will not be accomplished by sitting in a coffee shop, discussing issues, and then go to sleep. No, never. It will never be solved like this. I always give to my students sometimes an example of how the early Muslims were very serious, even in things which are not religious. Ibn Sina, in his biography, it's a famous biography, it's translated in many languages. He said when he started to study philosophy, Ibn Sina studied philosophy on his own, practically on his own. He said when he started to study philosophy, he got a book for Aristotle. And he didn't understand a word out of it. This is what he said exactly, literally. He said, I didn't understand a word out of it. And I repeated it, reading it 30 times, 30. You imagine reading a book 30 times, you don't understand a word of it. A torture. It's a torture. You try to understand, but he cannot understand. So he said, what I've done, I just went, make wudu, prayed 2 rak'ah, ask Allah to grant me understanding. I want to understand. And then he said, I went out of my house and there was a poor guy beside, and then I gave him a bit of a charity. I didn't move, this is what he said, I didn't move much from my house. I found a book seller, and on that, they used to call it in Arabic, warraq. Warraq means selling books. So on the top of the books, there was a book explaining this Aristotle book by Al-Farabi. Farabi, of course, another great Muslim scholar. And he said, I understood the book. How serious people were. If we are that serious, then we can look for reclaiming a civilizational role. If we're not that serious, so thank you very much, forget it. No need to talk about it. There's nothing to talk about it after this. If we're just having a nice gathering and people just talk and people just getting a certain knowledge, then this is fine. So first step first, we need to start by very simple things. These simple things will grow, and then it will recreate this civilization. But it needs a lot of work, a lot of effort. And there was a very famous statement by Newton, the famous scholar, when people asked him, how did you have these all contributions you had? Of course, he had a lot of contribution. He had a contribution in mechanics and physics and optics, and in religion also. He has a lot of writings on Christianity. Though it's not that popular. And he said a statement that you can search for it. He said, we stood on the shoulders of giants. We stood on the shoulders of giants. So unfortunately, we have giants, but we cannot stand on their shoulders. Historically, we had giants, but we cannot stand on the shoulders of these giants up to this moment. So if we can try to stand on their shoulders, then we can achieve something. Otherwise, I think we need to forget it. So cooperation, seriousness, mutual understanding, I think these are the very basic elements for any recovery of the civilizational role of Muslims all over the world. And thank you very much. Sorry for being here.
Thank you very much, Prof. Walid, for this very informative, very important and fruitful talk, where he tried to describe actually the attributes required to restore our golden age of Islam, our contribution, in fact, in the field of knowledge. He stressed more on the importance of unity, as he is the director of International Institute of Muslim Unity as well, in order to strengthen and cooperate all together, in fact, to create a significant added value, in fact, in the field of knowledge and civilization. One thing I just would like to stress more is that we know that throughout the history of Islam, Muslims, our senior Muslims, they were so open to everybody, to the word, to the extent that when they spread over the word, they managed, in fact, to influence the word. Their influence was not only because, they have no agenda in mind. As Prof. Walid mentioned just now, they were serious in achieving their goals in their lives. And they managed to achieve their goals in their lives, and that gives us a significant understanding to how those people were serious in their life. They were so serious, as Prof. Walid also mentioned. They were serious and very committed in achieving what they are planning to do, regardless where they are, where they go, where they live. But they were there as responsible Muslims, and they left a very historical civilization the world has ever seen. Thank you very much, Prof. Walid, for this very good contribution. And now I open the floor for question and answer. Please be precise in the question because we don't have much time. And before you ask the question, we prefer to mention your name and your country, because since morning we don't know since we are talking about unity, we want to know each of you is from which country. Thank you very much. Please proceed.
My question is to the Prof. You said that we cannot.
You.
No, I just forgot the name. The left one. According to me, you. As you said that when it comes to knowledge production, we cannot produce knowledge based on our own worldview. I'm asking you why. Because I'm giving you an example. In the House of Wisdom and on that area, Ibn al-Haytham was working and he critiqued first on the Ptolemy. He written the book, The Doubts on Ptolemy. After the destruction of Baghdad in 1258, in 1259, Maraga Observatory was formed in Azerbaijan. And there, the At-Tusi, Al-Urdi, Shirazi, then Ibn Shatir had developed their own astronomical planetary system based on those perspectives. Okay, so they developed. But the thing is that they had knowledge previous, but they didn't take the values attached to that knowledge. But the thing is that, as you said, we cannot go by this. Optics, Ibn al-Haytham has done on optics, but the same works has been found by Newton also. But there was no relation found between them. There was the work done by Copernicus, the same as Ibn Shatir, but there is no historical connection between them. I'm saying when they can both, in their separate horizon, can develop their own rules and law, why we cannot, just avoiding the values, taking just itself the knowledge, E is equal to mc square, we can build our own knowledge generation and production. As the last comment, the man, the Nobel Prize winner, Richard Feynman has says that the universe we are seeing is one of the various possibilities. It's not the only. So we can develop our own. So I want to ask, avoid values, we can. Why we cannot generate our own knowledge production? Thank you.
My name is Shakib and I'm from India. Thank you for this wonderful discussion. Since morning for each session, I was thinking to ask some questions. But anyway, the basic question for this session I had for the Dr. Almira, that when we were discussing about Baitul Hikmah, and yeah, but anyone can respond from the... The one thing, what I was finding that which were connecting all Muslims that time was the Arabic language, that we were all trying to learn that language because that was connecting us. So from that point, can we take a lesson for us to move forward, that we make the Arabic language, as we have English, a language of instructions, that all Muslims learn that language, and every nation try to translate the books in that language that everyone can benefit. If each nation is going to translate in their own language, we are not going to understand that language. But we as Muslims, we are obliged to somehow learn our basics of Islam, and which is in Arabic language. So from this point, can OIC move forward with this agenda that we try to make in our institution to make the Arabic language as a compulsory, and we try to translate the books and the wisdoms from different parts of the world, and we move forward. Because this is the thing we can learn from the golden age, and in self Baitul Hikmah. So that is my comment or questions. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Auzu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. I am Abdullah Al Mamun from Bangladesh and doing Masters of Comparative Law in ICOL. Thank you all. Our topic is towards the Renaissance of Muslim, and the present session is going on restoring the Islamic golden age. Restoring of something is also, I think, like the Renaissance. And for the Renaissance of Muslim world, I do believe, and we all do believe, that knowledge is the vital weapon, the most vital weapon. But how do we think, or how do, especially my question is to the Dr. Ismail, that how do we think regarding the political factor and economic factor? How does it play its role for the Renaissance of Muslim world? Because we know for the political situation intra or inter country of the Muslim world, there are many questions raised whether the only knowledge can do something better for the Muslim world. Thank you all.
You repeat the last part of the question?
Yeah, my point of the question is, we do believe that knowledge is the vital weapon for Renaissance, but whether there is any role for the political factor or for the economic factor, if there is, then how does it and how much it?
The attention from to all of you that the time when Baitul Hikmah was established, the political situation, what was the form of their political rule. In that context, we see a picture which is totally different in the present day. So at that time, they promote to build Baitul Hikmah in their political context. So my question is it possible to establish another Baitul Hikmah or something like this in this political context? Thank you very much.
So the first question, why we can't? Yes, I agree with you on the motto of yes, we can. But it's not just this volitional thing to say, yes, we can do it. Let me give you a specific example. In 1988, and it's from the world of international politics. In 1988, the OIC countries came together and decided to establish a committee of jurisprudence in order to give legal advice to international legal bodies that pertain to Muslim countries on cases that involve a Muslim country. Basically, the idea was to say, you know, whenever ICC or European Court of Human Rights, whatever, an international court is dealing with Muslim matters, then this committee should provide legal advice, expertise to the court that would say, you know, Sharia would say this, say that, you know. This idea comes up, this decision, but is never implemented, never comes up to the table again. Why? Because they quickly realize that if you go through classical fiqh, the entire international relations establishment, which rests on the UN Charter, you know, are in conflict. Okay? The UN Charter rests on two assumptions, two main norms, which is non-intervention and adoption of sovereignty, which, if you look at classical jurisprudence, are conflictual. Okay? If you look at classical understandings of Darul Islam, Darul Fiqh, this is not my position. This is the idea of this. The concern was that if you go through this committee, classical jurisprudence would be in stark conflict with international law that these states would not be able to handle. Okay? Because all Muslim states, OIC for example, OIC in its charter says we adopt the UN Charter. Okay? All Muslim states, all 57 of them, are members of the United Nations also, and they adopt United Nations Charter, which means they adopt the norms in there. Okay? The thing is, we are actually living through this contradiction, but you know, we, in a sense, through practice, found ways to make it compatible with our own understanding of Islam and what it requires for international politics. We basically say Muslim states shouldn't fight with each other, we should come together whenever one of them are attacked. These kinds of ideals. But when it comes to very specific, detailed international law, international relations, political science perspective, almost none is done. The thing is, nothing is built. you cannot continue with it. You end up either saying, you know, this tradition is dead, which some people say. Some people say, you know, thank you for your effort, classical jurists, you know, thank you, but for this time, it cannot work. Then some people say, again, another complete mirror image would say, no, 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 we have Darul Islam, Darul Harb, you know, forcing 12th century differences on Muslim world, on the world of 21st century, which doesn't work. What would work is to go back to resources and make a reasonable, make a justifiable interpretation of it on the basis of today's context, right? This one has not been done systematically. You know, I'm being a little bit bold and arrogant in saying this, but let be it. In the literature that I have seen no theoretical, systematical explanation of how a classical Islamic understanding of jurisprudence would sit well with the UN Charter. I personally have my opinions, but it's my opinion. I have not done anything systematic that would argue in one way or another. This is what I mean. I don't, you know, this is not about saying, you know, we can do it or we cannot do it. It's only an observation to say it's not done. Okay? And we have to first recognize that this is, you know, the example between Ibn Haytham and Newton, you know, when it comes to natural sciences, when it comes to, you know, more neutral objective sciences, you know, one can make argument, but the point of, what's the point of going back to Ibn Haytham right now, okay? You know, Ibn Haytham has been read by the Westerners too, and it's been built on it. What is the point in going all the way back to Ibn Sina's Qanun Fittah? You can get some insights from it, but the modern practice of medicine has expanded that knowledge. Okay, you may agree with some of it, disagree with some of it, but it expanded the knowledge. So the point is, especially when it comes to social matters, social, political, economic, international relations, things that are fuzzy, which doesn't have, as Professor Velid suggested, doesn't have clear answers. You know, in these fields, we need way much more work to be done, as the example I just gave suggests. Arabic as one language, you know, there was a time when Arabic was lingua franca of Islamic civilization, when any sensible Muslim thinker would definitely know Arabic, would sometimes even produce in Arabic, even if he or she doesn't produce in Arabic, would know Arabic. I think that's a very ideal position that I personally would sympathize with. But I don't see Arabic, for example, to the promotion of or turning learning Arabic into a requirement, for example. This can only be promoted as an ideal. You can, for example, as individual states, put more courses, encourage learning Arabic, which I deem very crucial, essential. But at the end, the drive for learning a language is based on incentives. Are people in the Muslim world incentivized toward learning Arabic? People say, you know, I will spend 1 year, 2 years learning Arabic. Huh? But if I learn Chinese instead, maybe it will work for my, you know, economic prospects. Okay? If I learn Spanish, it's becoming the second largest language, maybe I will do some business with it. People think, you know, I'm talking about structural incentives. You know, I think politics, the responsibility of politics is to create the incentives for people to feel the need to learn language. Otherwise, making it like a compulsory language, I think, wouldn't necessarily solve the problem. Even though I am sympathetic with the idea of, I wish everyone had knew Arabic and we were able to speak in it. And we should also think, plus, the kinds of backlash that might come to it. You know, when I was in Iran, for example, we went to Firdevsi's tomb. The way they talked about Firdevsi, the idea that Firdevsi saved the Iranian nation, the Persian nation from the imperial expansion of Arabics, I have seen that this nationalism is not gone. You know, this, you should also take this into account. I think the last two questions were about, you know, the knowledge production, relationship between knowledge production and political economic conditions, and whether you know, politics has something to it. Of course, I personally believe that knowledge production can never be completely isolated from the conditions we live in. This is something that I mentioned. So politics, in that sense, can create, reshape the conditions in which we seek knowledge, okay? Can create incentives. Otherwise, politics by itself is unable to produce any knowledge. Politics by itself, there are situations where, for example, we learn by doing. For example, when AK Party government came to power, AK Party came to power in 2002 and 2003, they didn't come with a very clear theoretical framework that they would pursue. They were basically trying to find their ways through. But out of that practice, there emerged something that I find theoretically significant, for example. So this, there is a way in which practice and theory always mutually breeds each other. But otherwise, the way we produce knowledge, is it a surprise, for example, that all of the panels, 3 panels today, including the opening speeches, talked about the utter bitter condition of Muslims, disunity, continual infighting, and of course this political fact, this political condition, influences the way we approach our subject matter, even we choose our subject matter. So there is always this connection, but politics, in my opinion, humble opinion, cannot produce that knowledge itself. It is a social thing, not a political, I think. Thank you.
I think just a quick comment on the issue of the House of Wisdom. House of Wisdom, we need to put it into its own size. House of Wisdom was a big library. That's it. House of Wisdom was a big library. That's it. This is what Mamun has done. A big library, facilitating people to translate from all languages to the Arabic language. And having such library, we have some countries, I will not mention the name of the countries, they are having very large libraries like this in the Muslim world, but it's useless. It's not reproducing wisdom, not producing anything, actually. It's nothing, nonsense. So the idea of House of Wisdom, I will go to a more different view, you can think about it. The greatest contribution of Islam, when Islam came, was the moral foundation that Islam brought to the world. Islam conquered 2 superpowers during its beginning, superpowers. Not by technology, not by a very lavish type of thing, but simply by the social structure, the moral power of those people. That's it. And then they produce knowledge later. And this is the same line that Dr. Ismail was saying. If you focus on theory now, you will not do anything. You start doing, and then things will come. But you need to have some principles in whatever you're doing. That's it. And then things will come later. But if we continue to make a theory, what will happen, what if, so we will end up what if also in the grave, inshallah. So you need to start doing something, not what if. Thank you very much, Subshid.
Yes, thank you both speakers for this very good evening presentation.